What's going on YouTube? Cloverbells here, back with another Scarlet Violet video, and today we're going to be revisiting the concept of the Rain archetype within the Regulation D format. So, since the beginning of Regulation D, Rain has been very strong. I believe it is the dominant weather of the four, without a doubt. Just by looking at top cut placements from online tournaments, and then of course the World Championships, it's very clear that Rain was pretty much the strongest of the four weathers, right? But it took some progress, right, to get up until that point, and there was many variations of what is the dominant Rain team at that given moment, and the archetype kind of like evolved from day one. And what I want to kind of do is just look at it and see how the concept of Rain has changed, as the format has developed, and then we'll do a little bit of team building at the end with what we think could be also a very good Rain team. And it was also a tier 3 sub request to the channel. So again, if this is something that you're interested in, if you're trying to do team building where you just need some help trying to enter like a local tournament or an upcoming regional, tier 3 is the way to go on the channel. We've done a lot of coaching for people, and again, we've gotten people CP, we've gotten people top cut results in some of these online tournaments. So I feel like we can, again, do the same, in the coming months. So if you're interested in that, video description and below, click the tier 3 sub, as well as in the comment section, there is a link to join the channel with that tier 3 sub for team building. But anyway, let's talk about Rain from the get-go. So early on, it was basically, you start with Pelipper, of course. This is your Rain bringer, right? Until we get something like Kyogre, we're using Pelipper. And then from here, you need like, Rain Sweepers, and then you need support Pokemon that can also pretty much just give you some solid play into the rest of the format, without necessarily relying on Rain, right? So it started out as Basculegion with Pelipper, okay? Here's your Rain Setter and your Rain Sweeper, okay? And then, now it just comes down to like, okay, how do I support this archetype and make it stronger while still having good options into the rest of the meta? So Amoongus is generally pretty good here. Of course, Amoongus enjoys the Rain. Whether it's Regulation A, B, C, D, either way, Amoongus enjoys it just because, one, it gives you something to play in the Trick Room matchup, because generally these Rain teams are very aggressive and very fast, especially with Pelipper having the option for Tailwind, and then of course Basculegion having Swift Swim. So then, you're kind of like quote-unquote weak into the Trick Room games, but then Amoongus can kind of give you some balance there. And then at the same time, the Rain just reduces overall fire damage against the Amoongus, which is one of its weaknesses, right? So grass types on Rain teams are generally very good. And then from here, something like what's that thing called? Thundurus. Yeah, Thundurus actually saw some decent some decent play in Regulation D, I would say, just because of this ability called Volt Absorb. Because if you just look at Pelipper and Basculegion, you're weak to electric type attacks, but then a very timely Volt Absorb, it can just come in on switch, and then you basically soak up that attack. You get a little bit of healing, electric immunity in essence, right? And then at the same time, you get some good synergy with Rain, because you have this idea of Wild Bolt Storm, which is very strong in the Rain because it's 100% accurate, and then at the same time you have this chance for paralysis, right? So a little bit more speed control. And then again, you just look at its special attack stat of 145. It's very strong. And then I've seen variants of, like, of course, Choice Specs, and then our set, which also, which we gave to a viewer previously. They were able to use it and get top 4. Was this Assault Vest Thundurus, where you're just able to, tank a lot of hits and then just go for snarls and then neuter other special attackers like a fluttermane, right? And then from here, this last slot, okay, these last 2 slots, basically the most successful variation of this 4 came down to this. It was a Hisuian Goodra along with the Fluttermane, right? So 2 ghost types here, but again, the Fluttermane and Basculegion, they're 2 very fundamentally different Pokemon, right? So that's why you can still have 2 types on the same team, right? This is a very strong special attacker. This is a very strong physical attacker. And this was it. And then Hisuian Goodra, just gave you something, something against urshifu, against Fluttermane. It was somewhat a little bit passive, but, with the ability to set up, and those shelter plays and then just go for body presses and heavy slams, it just gave good, strong balance overall into the team, right? So you can see that you're not like completely reliant on Rain. You still have some play with Goodra and Fluttermane, along with the Amoongus And then you can even just have like rain in the back, you know, to an extent, right? So this was a very, very good team. And then again, this was created by, you know, Devin, or in other words, Teen Spirit on Twitter. So shout out to Devin yet again. We always give him shout outs, right? Because we've seen this team multiple times, and it's still strong even right now, okay? But as we headed into the World Championships, the Rain team evolved, and all of a sudden now you don't really see the same 6 anymore, right? You still get Pelipper, of course, okay, but in terms of your other options, people started to deviate away from the Basculegion and away from the Guja, right? And even away from the Thunderous, right? Just because, you know, Thunderous, as good as it was, it's still like relatively weak to Chien-Pao Dragonite shenanigans, and then Guja can be a little bit more passive, and then at the same time, you just need a little bit more to the team, right? So in comes the World Championships, and now what we're going to do is just show you some of these teams that did well in the World Championships. When I say some of these teams, I mean the Rain teams, because what you're going to notice is that it's the same 6 Mons, but very, very slight differences in sets and how, you know, they play out necessarily, right? So what we're going to do is we'll show you that, and then we'll talk about it. Okay, so we're on the Victory Road page, and again, if you want to just take a look at some of these open team sheets, as well as some of the rental codes for some of these teams, feel free to do so. It's a great resource, especially if you're trying to pick something up and just try something for Regulation D. But we'll start here. 5th place, Abdullah's team, Sempra, of course. Shout out to Sempra, very, very good job overall this season. But, you know, well, this is his team, right? So he's basically have Pelipper, and then he still kept the Amoongus, but again, no Basculegion, no Gudra, and instead, your Rain Sweeper is actually more or less this urshifu, right? Which does a lot of damage in the rain. It's a Scarf variant, okay? So you can outspeed a lot of major threats, and then at the same time, you have a pivot move in U-turn, which can allow you to get some repositioning. And then from here, you have the Iron Hands. And I like to play Iron Hands on Rain teams. This is a thing back in like Regulation C and even B, you know, where Iron Hands was great into stuff like Iron Bundle, right? Because whether it was like Pelipper plus, you know, some Palafin or some other Rain Sweeper, you know, you always needed Iron Hands because like this, and this, right? You're weak to the Iron Bundle because this is weak to Ice. This is weak to freeze dry. This is definitely weak to freeze dry. So you needed something for the Iron Bundle, right? So Iron Hands generally came onto a lot of those teams. And then from here, you know, Gholdengo also enjoys the rain, right? Just because you get Tailwind support, and then at the same time, you know, you get rain to be able to reduce fire damage overall, right? And then Chien-Pao, you know, just pretty much combos well with the urshifu at the same time. You know, just making it do more damage because of Sword of Ruin, and then something that also enjoys the rain concept where you're just taking less damage, you know, in the rain. And then overall, again, you could also make your Iron Hands do more damage, you know, and support it that way in essence. Now, I know that there's no Tailwind on Sempra's team, but that's okay because it still functions more or less the same way. It's more of a balanced, slower kind of rain team, but like, again, Nasty Plot Gholdengo with Amoongus support is just very, very devastating, okay? And the Citrus Berry, again, just gives it more longevity with recovery, right? And then again, Terra Flying over here, so, you know, being able to dodge ground type attacks, especially from like a Landorus, is also very good. Ghost, of course, the fighting move, the fake out, you're able to dodge that. The Steel Presence here on the, you know, Pelipper just allows it to get around these electric type attacks, these rock type attacks, again, you know, things that Pelipper doesn't really like. Grass is very standard here, of course, but, you know, just overall, again, you can kind of see like, okay, you know, we have 1, 2, 3 physical attackers, 2 special attackers, and then 1 support, right? So you have a pretty good balanced formula here as far as like how you want to play this Rain Pelipper kind of squad. So good building here from Sempra. And then if we go down, we'll see 3 other players that actually more or less have the same 6, but have some slight differences, right? So right here, immediately, Luca's team. Let's create this over here. So Luca, so it's a Rocky Helmet Pelipper, right? And this is also Rocky Helmet. But at the same time, here is the Tailwind on this Pelipper, right? So now you have the extra speed control. This is still Nasty Plot with Amoongus, okay? And then at the same time, here's still Urshifu Choice Scarf. That's still relatively the same. Chien-Pao is Icicle Crash here. And this is Ice Spinner, okay? So that's another thing, right? Ice Spinner versus Icicle Crash. A little bit of variance. Again, The main difference is the accuracy, of course, and then at the same time, getting around the rocky helmet, avoiding taking that chip damage is important. And then you get a little bit more damage, and then you have the chance to flinch, right? So, give or take, generally, like, I kind of like Ice Spinner just because, you know, if Rillaboom is not on your team, I think Ice Spinner is just a little bit, maybe slightly better, but, you know, Icicle Crash still has its merits, of course, for the reasons we just said, okay? But, again, same 6, but again, slight differences in how you want to play it. But, you know, it's just all about, like, okay, this is Tailwind, this is Crash versus Ice Spinner. Okay, go figure. Now, as we scroll down, we'll still see the same 6, but again, some slight difference in some of those sets. But again, still, the new variants of Rain is relying on this 6, right? I think I saw it over here. There's still more. Yep, here we go again. David Carrera's team. So let's look at David's team. So Hurricane, Tailwind, Wide Guard. Okay, Terra Grass, Pelipper, right? Rather than Steel. And then here's the Urshifu Choice Scarf. Okay, still the same set. Was this also Terra Water, might I add? Yeah, it still was. There's Leaf Storm on. I think everyone had Leaf Storm on the Amoongus, right? Yeah, it's a great grass move, especially against something like Ursaluna. And then here's Sucker Punch and Crunch. I think everybody had Sucker Punch and Crunch, right? More or less. Yes, exactly. And then here's still Nasty Plot Golden leftovers instead of Citrus Berry, but still the same idea. You're still getting like recovery over time. And then Terra Water Amoongus, because here's the berry over here, and then over here this is also berry. Here's the Rocky Helmet here, and this is Mental Herb for Semper. So doesn't want to get taunted, especially by an opposing Tornadus. Makes a lot of sense. You know, getting taunted is relatively annoying, so you get one get out of jail free card, you know, in that essence. So but again, these small differences, right? Let's keep going here because we still see it yet again. Let me see if I can find another. Here's Tehran Birdie's team. So let's look at Tehran's team. So this is an open sheet. So basically right here you have Protect, Hydro Pump, Hurricane, Wide Guard, no Tailwind here. Okay, here's the Ice Spinner concept. So Sucker Punch and Crunch. Here's the Terra Steel idea. Here's Citrus Berry. Here's the Mental Herb. This might actually still be Semper's team. I have no idea if they worked together on this or if they team built together. Maybe they did. I didn't get a chance to watch the team report video on Pokemon Events channel, so maybe I should go check that out. But I'm going to assume this might be the same team, but we'll see. Terraflying, Gholdengo, yeah, I think it's the same one. But either way, you know, some small variances in how these squads are played. I think we can find one more. I want to say that there was still one more. I may have missed it, but I'm gonna. Oh, here we go. Jack's team. Oh no, this is, well, hold on a second. This one has the Basculegion, right? Let's actually take a look at this. All right, so we have Amoongus, Pelipper, Gholdengo, Iron Hands, right? Here's the Chanpao. No Urshifu, but instead the Basculegion. So Jack has not abandoned the Basculegion archetype. So this is still, you know, again, more or less the same kind of squad, but instead of the Ursh, we have a Basculegion. This is also Goggles, Pelipper. Okay, makes a lot of sense. You know, I like it a lot. This is probably, you know, what I like as well, you know, of the 5, but, you know, you can kind of see how to, and I like Chanpao here, right? Because Chanpao will help Basculegion do a lot more damage, right? You can always switch it in, preserve the Pelipper, you know, preserve the Rain, let Chanpao come in, let Basculegion do even more damage, okay? And then go from there. I really like Jack Clark's team. Of the 5, I think it's my favorite one, but again, everyone else has a very, very solid and strong Rain team altogether. But you can see the evolution and how of the variants of some of these Rain teams, and I like it a lot. Okay, and now what we're gonna do is we're gonna transition back into Showdown here, and we'll show what we call our version of how we like to play Rain at this given moment. Right? So let's take a look here. Okay, so back here into Showdown here. So we're starting with the Pelipper yet again. We are gonna be running Tailwind on this thing. I still like Basculegion as our main sweeper here. I think it's a lot of fun, and I think it just puts out so much damage overall. And then from here, I do like this supporting cast of Amoongus and Iron Hands, right? I always feel like I like to start Rain teams like this. Just slap on Amoongus, slap on Iron Hands, Rain Setter, Rain Sweeper, right? This is kind of like the formula I've always followed, you know, for a while. And it's a very standard, consistent way of looking at it. And then from here, I always feel like a lot of these Rain teams, they do enjoy Intimidate support. So I do like Landorus here, and Landorus might seem weird on a Rain team, but when you think about it, it actually still kind of makes sense, because think about it here. Pelipper and Basculegion they're both weak to electric types, right? And the whole idea with like running Thunderous was that it gave you some electric immunity because of Volt Absorb, but you know, it's still not like super great overall. Like, it's still okay, but I think Landorus can just be a very, very more reliable option. You don't have to like burn a Terra Ground, you know, Terra type on some of these things, and then just having Intimidate support on the team is just very, very strong overall, right? So you can always time a very timely switch, you know, go into Landorus when you suspect maybe a potential Iron Hands electric attack, right? Because Iron Hands can do relatively well against both of these. But then you just go into your Landorus, and then you're kind of just chilling here. And then you just make the team overall relatively bulky by just having Intimidate support. And it's something that always enjoys Landorus' company that we've seen on, you know, pretty much every kind of team before, is just having the fluttermane over here, right? Because with fluttermane having, you know, more or less a weakness to steel types, Landorus can put some pressure on some of those steel types overall and just click a ground move. And then you're just kind of chilling from there, right? And then with this Landorus, I actually like the Choice Scarf variant. So this way you can outspeed other fluttermanes, outspeed, you know, stuff like Iron Bundle for that matter, you know, assuming they don't have a booster energy, of course. But I do like Landorus on this kind of team. And this is basically the 6 that we were giving to our viewer. So now if you just look at the squad, you got, of course, you have Speed Control here with Tailwind. You have Intimidate. You have Redirection. You have Fake Out. You know, a lot of these, what we call VGC condiments that make your team taste a little bit better, you know, assuming it is like a meal, right? You don't necessarily need everything, but it's good if you have some of these tools, right? But what I also like on this fluttermane, and this is where, you know, it can really separate out this kind of rating team from like others, is the fact that you can run Trick Room on this fluttermane, right? Because now you have an Amoongus and Iron Hands that can do relatively well in the Trick Room mode, and then at the same time when you're playing against the Mirror, especially against some of those other Tornadus aggressive teams, right? You can, you know, basically counter their Tailwind and click Trick Room. And, you know, I understand they can still use their priority moves on some of these mons, but at the very least, having the Trick Room option against their Tailwind makes them think twice overall. And then at the same time, you know, some of those Tornadus teams, they kind of struggle a little bit against Wide Guard, which is why Pelipper has a pretty good niche this format. A little bit more of a better niche than it did in the previous format, just because there's so much more spread moves. But I like this idea. So you have multiple forms of speed control. Like I said, you got the Intimidate, Fake Out, Redirection support. So overall, it's a relatively still balanced way of playing Rain, right? And you still have like an aggressive mode. You have a fast mode, you have a slow mode. So you can definitely have some flexibility in some of these best of 3 matches, right? And you know, I kind of like how it was playing out, especially when we gave it to the viewer, right? So we have the 6. So now what we're going to do is round out the movesets, the EVs, the items, the Terras, and then showcase a couple of battles where we can see how this Rain team functions, all right? Okay, back over here to Pelipper. So basically, let's go with the standard set of Hurricane, Tailwind, and Wide Guard, and then lastly, you just have Protect here. And then you can run the Rocky Helmet here, but I want to put the Rocky Helmet on the Amoongus, and of course, this is Regenerate, so that means I need a different item on the Pelipper. Goggles is pretty good. You know, Damp Rock is pretty good, making your rain last longer. I just like Citrus Berry here, just to give it a little bit more longevity, especially against stuff like, you know, just extreme speed or even like Ice Spinner, to be able to dip down, get the berry recovery, and then make things, you know, a 2-hit or a 3-hit KO is just generally like very, very good when you're trying to like preserve your weather and keep making your Basculegion, you know, very, very strong in the rain, right? And then I like Terra Steel here. That's my preference. That's usually how I like to play my Pelipper, similar to like Zapdos, just in terms of like flying types in general. You know, rock weakness, ice weakness, even though this doesn't really have an ice weakness, but still the electric weakness. So at least you can neutralize that a little bit with the Steel Terra. Basculegion, Life Orbs, still very good. And then just a standard set of Wave Crash, Last Respects, very good in the end game, Aqua Jet, and then Protect. So you still have your own priority mon, almost like your budget Urshifu. I shouldn't even say that. It's very different from Urshifu, but you still get Aqua Jet in this sense, right? Then from here, Amoongus, of course, Rage Powder, of course, Spore, Pollen Puff, you're the Cleric, and then Leaf Storm is still a pretty good idea. If you like Protect here, you can definitely put Protect here. Still very, very solid. Over here with the Iron Hands, I like Assault Vest, of course. Standard set here with Terra Grass, you know, with just Fake Out, you know, Drain Punch, Wild Charge, and then Heavy Slam here just to snipe other Fluttermanes, right? The Amoongus will go Terra Water here, and then the Basculegion will still keep it as water, right? So very standard Iron Hands here. Then this Landorus set. Let's go Terra Blast, Terra Flying. You know, so this way we can be aggressive against opposing Amoonguses, opposing Urshifus, opposing Rillabooms. So I think Terra Blast, Terra Flying makes a lot of sense. Other than that, Stomping Tantrum and Rock Slide, these are your two go-to moves. And then, like we said, Terra Blast. And then finally, U-Turn. You know, just give it a nice solid pivot move here, just to reposition in and then come back out, of course, right? Intimidate Cycle against stuff like Ursaluna, for that matter. Just gives you, you know, good play here. All right. Fluttermane here. So we'll go Booster Energy, of course. There we go. And then we'll go Shadow Ball, your Stab Ghost move. I do like Dazzling Gleam here, and then Protector. So no Moonblast, which means this Fluttermane is going to be a little bit weaker, right? In terms of like trying to single target damage. But, you know, it still has that role on the team where, you know, you can still be aggressive, but again, support with Trick Room, counter other Trick Room teams, and then also put pressure on those Tailwind teams by also clicking Trick Room in that essence, right? So then from here, you know, I just like Terra Fairy. And then at the same time, you can also definitely consider like Terra Grass, which also likes the rain. So this way you take reduced damage from Flare Blitz. You get around Amoongus in that sense. You'll do less damage with your Dazzling Gleam. So, you know, it's up to you if you like to play that, but we gave him Terra Fairy just so that, yeah, at the very least, remove the Ghost weakness in the mirror matchup. And then just at least do a little bit more damage with Dazzling Gleam, right? So then we'll go back here to Pelipper. And now we'll do some EV spreads here. Okay, so starting here with the Pelipper again, just it's all about choosing your speed tiers first, of course. Again, we've given this formula slash template of creating EV spreads in a previous video. So search the channel if you want that video. Otherwise, ask me in the video description. I'll give you the template, the secret of creating an EV spread for competitive Pokemon. All right, but what we want here is, of course, just to be able to outspeed opposing Fluttermanes, right? A lot of them are modest. And a lot of them cap at 207, so at the very least, let's try and outspeed that with Tailwind. So 104 is pretty good. That'll get you to 208, so that'll outspeed those Fluttermanes. We'll go to the first bump here in special attack. Right, you see how you go from 130 to 132? You skip 131. How did that happen? This is what we call an EV bump. And again, if you don't know what EV bumps are, and you're trying to play competitive Pokemon, make sure you comment in the video description below asking what are EV bumps, because they're one of the more fundamental skills to understand in trying to play this game. And if you don't know what they are, ask and we will tell you in the comments in a reply. All right, but of course with the Pelipper, we just want to be like a bulky bird because ultimately we're just supporting with Tailwind and Wide Guard. The occasional Hurricane's going to help, but of course we're just pretty much like providing the rain for the team. So max HP is what we want. Then a little bit of special defense. Physical defense is ideally the way to go here, just because you know, extreme speed shenanigans, Ice Spinner, this is what we're trying to resist, and then just being able to force 2 to 3 hit KOs in that regard, right? So that's our very general Pelipper spread. Basculegion, Adamant, max speed, no reason not to do it. A little bit of life of optimization ending in 199, of course, and then just 1 point in the bulk, and then the rest just gets dumped into attack like this, right? Of course, you always want to end in a 9 with the Life Orb, so this way you can optimize against the recoil, because again, you're losing 1/10 of your max HP per turn, because if it was something like this, right, now you're taking 20 points of damage, whereas if you do this, you undercut the threshold and you're only taking 19 points of damage, right? And then at the same time, it's very convenient how it all works out. This is the third EV bump here. You see how you go from 174 to 176? What happened to 175? Your third EV bump here. All right, Amoongus, relaxed nature, of course, be optimal in Trick Room. All right, and then at the same time, just have about 236 investment. 219 is the optimal HP number for Regenerator. It's a perfect 73 if you do a third of your max HP. This is not so optimal because now it's 73 point something, a decimal, which rounds down to 73 anyway. So you're wasting EVs that way. So let's go to 219 here. And now we still get 73 recovery, but now we have a few more EVs left to play with, right, in terms of our bulk. All right, we'll go for the second EV bump here, right here, 156 investment. And then down here, the rest just goes into Spidef, right? Iron Hands, you know, I like to make the Iron Hands a little bit faster this time around. So I went Adamant Nature here and just 76 investments instead of 156. You're still going this much here, 76 HP here. All right, and then from this point, you just want, I put like 132 speed here. All right, so this way, you know, under Tailwind, you're still outspeeding, you know, like opposing fluttermanes, which is actually kind of funny under Tailwind in that sense, if you can do that. Because think about it, if you just have like 20 points here, you know, or something like this, under Tailwind, you still don't outspeed those fluttermanes, right? But now what you can do is put a little bit more EV investment in speed, and all of a sudden in Tailwind, now this Iron Hands can actually outspeed some of these fluttermanes, which is actually kind of funny. So we kept it in that sense, because, you know, if you do a little bit of math, you know, you're not going to outspeed all of them. It just depends. Some of them are like these slower, bulkier, modest sets, right? So 87 plus 87, you know, about 174. That can outspeed some of these other fluttermanes. So that's why we kind of went in that sense. And then you still get the much needed special defense bulk here with 220 investment here. Trust me, this speed actually comes in very, very handy in a lot of different scenarios. So just trust us on this one. All right, Landorus here. We're going to take a page out of our good friend Sebastian's book here, and we'll still go adamant, of course. We'll go max speed here. We'll go third EV bump here in the attack stat. Okay, and then from here you just put about basically 1 point in each in defense and SpDef, and just dump the rest into HP like this, right? It's just leftovers. All right, now this fluttermane is where things get a little bit more interesting, okay? We're actually going to be going a timid fluttermane here, so we're going to be getting a speed boost, okay? Which means we can outspeed the mirror, because some of these are going for modest natured. And what we're going to do is actually go right here to 132 investment, okay? This is all we need. And the reason for this is, again, this is 187, which is max speed modest, but I want to outspeed the max speed modest fluttermanes, right? So we'll go to 189 just for a little bit of speed creeping. And then from here, you know, it's just all about, you know, optimizing your HP and defenses to be able to survive the Sucker Punch, as well as the Icicle Crash from the Adamant Shenpao, right? And here's that EV, here's this investment here. Again, all you have to do is just use the damage calculator and you're able to do this. And then the rest just goes into special attack like this, right? So honestly, this is, again, another version of our fluttermane EV spreads on the channel, where, again, we're still investing in a lot of bulk here. But at the very least, just so you understand what the spread does, again, we're outspeeding the modest natured fluttermanes while still dealing a little bit of damage, but ultimately this bulk is meant to survive the Adamant Shenpao shenanigans, right? And that's why we have it. Okay, and that's pretty much it, right? So again, you can see how we just went for like basic benchmarks in the beginning, all right, just to create some of these EV spreads. And it was actually a pretty fun team when I was trying it out myself, but ultimately we were pretty much just providing feedback for our viewer as they were doing some ladder games, because again, it was a tier 4 sub to the channel. Tier 3 is just team building, but tier 4 gets you the team building session along with, like, you know, feedback for improving your battle mechanics, right? So if you're interested in tier 4, where not only we get to build your team, but actually improve some of your battle mechanics and just how you play, you know, best of 3 or even like single matches, right? That's what we do here as well. All right, so now what we're gonna do is we'll show you some of those showdown games, and then from here we'll just see overall how the team functions. Okay, so we'll look at this match, and again, the one that is using the team is, of course, our viewer here. So they matched up against what is like almost a mirror, right? You still have a fluttermane, Amoongus, Landorus, Iron Hands. So like that 4 is the same, and then they just have Shenpao Ursh. We have Basculegion Pelipper. So it's basically like their balance versus like our rain balance, more or less, right? So our opposing fluttermane can actually do relatively well here because he actually has 3 weaknesses, technically 4 weaknesses to our own fluttermane here, right? Because he has Iron Hands, urshifu, and Shenpao, which a lot of teams generally do, which is why fluttermane is so good in general, right? Because a lot of these teams have like 3 weaknesses at least to a fluttermane. Now they've got their own, which is technically 4, right? Now he doesn't really have the speed control here, so that's pretty good for us. He still has a Landorus, right? Which is actually relatively interesting in itself. But either way, you know, I feel like Basculegion can kind of do a lot here. So urshifu fluttermane versus Basculegion fluttermane, right? And you already know that Pelipper's in the back here, so just like having the rain as an option in the end game is actually really good, because then we can have the Basculegion win in the mirror, right? But as far as like fluttermanes as a lead, right? So I noticed there's no photosynthesis, so that means it's probably something like Pixie Plate. So our fluttermane has a speed advantage here. Now the urshifu can actually just demolish our fluttermane, but at the very least, you know, you can technically just KO it right back, you know, with the Dazzling Gleam in that sense, right? With the Terra Fairy as well. But, you know, you just have to be careful. You know, of course, we can even force the Terra against this fluttermane here because it's going against two ghost types, I should say, right? So this could even merit a switch, but it really just all depends on this urshifu wants to play it. Okay, so we're going to go into Pelipper here. We'll keep the Basculegion in the end game. We'll go Terra Fairy, so this way we don't have to suffer at the hands of a ghost type. The urshifu protects, which is expected, right? You know, of course. And then we force the fluttermane to terrestrialize, right? Because it doesn't want to take a ghost type attack. So a little bit chip into their flutter, right? Thunderbolt. So there's their tech move, which is a little unfortunate for us, right? But it's still not like punishing in that sense because now Basculegion comes in and it has the advantage in the rain, right? And now this fluttermane has to make a decision. You know, do I protect? Do I switch out? You know, this urshifu is also in trouble. And again, that's already +1, you know, for our last respects. So it goes into Iron Hands here, so that's a good play. So we removed the fluttermane with Aqua Jet, of course. It decided to stay in, and Dazzling Gleam is just good damage into the Iron Hands altogether. And now here's the urshifu here. So Aqua Jet could potentially just KO this fluttermane technically, you know, but it won't because we have a lot of bulk, and there's a Landorus in the back for this Iron Hands, and it will also, you know, reduce damage for the urshifu. Can be a little bit tricky, and then at the same time, Landorus looks really good here as a switch in because even if they remove the fluttermane, you know, Landorus coming in to intimidate the Iron Hands and maybe even like, you know, baiting them into the electric type attack is also really good if they don't decide to do the urshifu kill, right? So, so here's the play. We go into Landorus here, right? Get the intimidate off, and it's actually just fake out Surging Strike, so that's also a pretty good play, right? So they remove the fluttermane. This is the safer play, right? But now Basculegion comes back in, and again, last respects, removes the urshifu, right? Because that was already 2. And now this Iron Hands is pretty much a sitting duck here because now you just click Stomping Tantrum. And now that's pretty much it because now it's just 2-on-1. Here's the Chien-Pao here. Basculegion can click whatever it wants. Here there was last respects rather than Wave Crash. Here's the Stomping Tantrum, and that's pretty much all she wrote, right? So good solid battle. Again, it was just all about like getting the rain out and then repositioning and then finishing the job in what was otherwise like a very, very solid mirror matchup. Okay, so this is another one of those tornadus teams, which is almost relatively standard. There's a buffalo there. There's the Aquatoros, which I feel like should just be like Hisuian Arcanine in all honesty, but you know, that's okay. Still Aquatoros is still pretty good. There's probably Rain Dance on this thing anyway, so make it do a little bit more damage, and you still get Intimidate support, right? But ultimately, Iron Hands as a lead, and Pelipper is still relatively good. It covers for a lot of different things, especially if they decided to also lead the Tauros or even lead the Amoongus or even the Urshifu, because Hurricane just does so much damage, and then Iron Hands pretty much does well into the entire team, right? Not named Amoongus. So I felt like this was a pretty good lead in this sense. Now you can always just do like Wide Guard here to stop the spread damage here, and then Iron Hands doesn't even have to go for Fake Out. It can just really pin this fluttermane slot. Maybe, you know, force the switch into the Tauros in that sense, and then you know, Pelipper is just free to Hurricane that slot in all honesty, right? So there's the Tailwind. That's still okay. Moonblast into Iron Hands hurts a lot. But here's our Tailwind, and we just sniped the fluttermane altogether with the Heavy Slam, right? So I didn't think we needed to like necessarily Tailwind there, but it's still okay because he was going to be faster either way. I'd much rather just, you know, get some damage, you know, with the Pelipper rather than just clicking Tailwind, just trying to match it, because you're not going to be able to anyway. But here's the Chien-Pao. This is still pretty good for Basculegion in the back, which is exactly what we have here. So Tailwind is still pretty good here. There's the Icicle Crash, and there's the value of the Citrus Berry, right? Because again, that's still not going to kill even after a second one, right? Bleak Wind Storm is a little bit punishing. We don't get the speed drop. Here's the Hurricane. That's good damage. And honestly, you can just Wide Guard here, you know, Aqua Jet, the Chien-Pao, which drops. And again, this, whether it has Icy Wind or Bleak Wind Storm, Wide Guard has very, very good value here, right? So now it's just the Amoongus, and they pretty much have to forfeit because you pin this Tornado slot either way. And then you can always just Hurricane the Amoongus. You know, and then last respects pretty much just does so much damage in the end game, where you can, if you want to even preserve it, but it's basically 4-on-2. They don't have enough offensive pressure, so that was just like an easy forfeit. Okay, so this one actually has Tornadus, Landorus, you know, as well, you know, with double Genie, and then there's the Iron Bundle, and there's a group start. So I don't necessarily agree with like double Prankster on the same team. That was like never really great in Sword and Shield, and it's still not even great now in Scarlet and Violet. It's just a little bit too passive. I'd rather have another option there, maybe even like an Amoongus in that slot. But either way, I feel like Iron Hands does a lot here, unless it's like Landorus. But you know, just having electric pressure here and Drain Punch into the Heatran and even into the Iron Bundle is good. And his only real answer to that is just like the Landorus in that sense, right? And then the Urshifu, you already have fluttermane for that, as well as the Grimmsnarl. So for me, it would have been fluttermane, Iron Hands as a lead, force the Landorus to come in, right? But let's see what our viewer decided to do. So here's Tornadus Iron Bundle. Here's the fluttermane and the Landorus, right? I would have much rather liked to see the Iron Hands here, but this is still okay. You know, you're gonna have to switch this out, of course, and anticipate the Trick Room here, right? There's the Rain Dance. Here's the Freeze Dry, right? This is what I thought should be the lead. And Trick Room is actually really good here against him, just because the Iron Hands now has pressure against both of these. And now this fluttermane can actually still outspeed both of these because it's generally slower than both of them now, right? So here's the Landorus. So that's what I wanted to come out before, right? Thankfully, it went into the other slot as opposed to the Tornado slot. It doesn't pick up the KO, unfortunately, right? Adamant 156 would have done it, but we're 76 here. Bleakwind does a pretty good chunk of damage here, but now we just removed the Tornado, so that's pretty good for us. And now here's the Urshifu. So we don't want to really lose the fluttermane, so this was a good swap here into Amoongus because of the Rocky Helmet shenanigans. And again, Terra Grass just to be able to try and survive the Landorus there. I would have much rather liked to see like maybe a Wild Charge here into the Urshifu instead of that. But either way, decent chip damage there. Spore into Landorus is good. I don't know why there's a Drain Punch when we could have just clicked the Wild Charge there, but a little bit of recovery is not too bad. And then there's the Poison Jet, right? Now, what was interesting here was the item in the Urshifu, because we do Spore it, but it's actually Lumberry, which is actually not great. He's going for Fissure, which I'm very surprised to see from Landorus. And thankfully, our bulk on our fluttermane is good enough where we can just survive. And now all we have to do is just redirect everything here, and then just basically just remove things, right? I'm surprised to not see Dazzling Gleam there, because we probably would just pick up both KOs there, but that's still okay. Now here's the Iron Bundle. You're pretty much forced to click Rock Slide, and we are Scarf here, which is the variant, because now we get the flinch. And I feel like if we don't get that flinch, we pretty much almost lose, because then you freeze dry the Landorus, and then next turn you outspeed the fluttermane and the game is over. So it's pretty much just coming down to that flinch there. But some turns could have been cleaned up, but again, overall, still like you can see how the team still functions, right? Still, you can still win games. Okay, so this is like another Pelipper mirror to an extent, right? There's Pelipper, Iron Hands, Fluttermane, and Amoongus. There's a Gyarados instead of a Landorus, and then there's an Urshifu rather than a Basculegion. Now, is that water or single strike? I don't know. But either way, actually, Gyarados makes some sense here, right? It gets a little bit of boosted damage in terms of waterfall, so this is actually pretty cool. But either way, Iron Hands is the play here. That's very good against a rain kind of team like this. There's the Iron Hands and Amoongus, right? So good Intimidate from the Landorus coming out turn 1. At least try to put pressure on this Amoongus or put pressure on the Iron Hands either way. Force the Terra Grass potentially, maybe even force a switch out, maybe into something like Pelipper or Gyarados if the Stomping Tantrum does come out, and then maybe the Amoongus can technically Spore here if we don't fake it out. So the decision was to fake out the Iron Hands and then just remove the Amoongus, right? I'm surprised to not see an opposing Landorus come in that slot. Could have been interesting. I thought Pelipper would swap in, but either way, this still kind of works out. Protect Pelipper first is good. Because Terra Blast was coming in there as well as Wild Charge, so good double up there. Now, of course, there's a little bit of damage there from Wild Charge, but still not terrible in that sense, right? We still have the Basculegion in the back. Terra Grounded was a great play here because our Wild Charge does nothing, and now the Iron Hands gets to get free damage on our Iron Hands while the Pelipper picks up our Landorus, unfortunately, right? But that's still okay. Here's the Basculegion. Good call on the Protect here. He saw him Protect once. Now he goes for the Iron Hands. Makes a lot of sense here. And then the double up just makes sense, right? It's an Assault Vest. There's no Protect. You're the faster Iron Hands. You have all that speed investment for this reason. Here's the Ursh. Protect Ursh there makes sense, but just remove the Pelipper. Force the 3-on-1 here. Urshifu can't win this game here now because there's too much options against him. So there's a little bit of Last Respects damage. Wave Crash probably does more, but in the grand scheme of things, it doesn't really matter. because Wild Charge just finishes the game over here, right? But you know, decent way playing into the mirror. You know, again, Basculegion Iron Hands just does so well into that matchup. Okay, so this one is like, again, standard Fire Water Grass core with double Genie, fluttermane, and urshifu. So, I mean, Intimidate looks relatively okay here, you know, from the Landorus. It's also pretty good as far as like electric immunity against that Thunderous. And then our own Basculegion probably can clean up in the end game. It's a little bit tricky. It just all depends on this Thunderous set. But I would imagine just like Eerie Impulse and then you know, Scary Face shenanigans. But I'm very surprised to see this. This is not a great lead. It can be, but you know, Electric Pressure, Grass Pressure, Landorus could be a good switch here if you can make the right call. But all in all, Protect here. You know, Fake Out of course has to come into that slot. Thunderbolt went into the Basculegion. So having seen that, I guess going into this Landorus makes a lot of sense. I like this play, but they went for the Pelipper slot. Because probably thinking like Tailwind support. Woodhammer is a little bit punishing. So the opponent gets the better of that. I was very surprised to see the Thunderbolt go into that slot as opposed to the other one. But I like that Landorus play either way. Fluttermane comes in here. Now, the problem here is this Thunderous has Prankster moves, right? So whether it be Eerie Impulse or Scary Face, not great. Landorus could do something. You know, maybe U-turn out of here from the Rillaboom and then just reposition. But Woodhammer into our Basculegion in the back just isn't so great. So we're kind of just almost stuck in here, to be honest, right? So there's Thunder Wave. It actually misses, which is very fortunate for us. But here's the Rock Slide to try and remove the Thunderous, but not so great. I don't know why there's a U-turn here. I probably would have just clicked Woodhammer, but here's the Landorus. Why Intimidate we can just kill? So we'll go into Basculegion here. A little bit risky, but makes a lot of sense. Block the Eerie Impulse. There's the U-turn yet again. But here comes Rillaboom, Shadow Ball, so, you know, not really caring about Thunder Wave there. Wave Crash, lucky to pull up the Rillaboom, because now here comes the Landorus here. Okay, in terms of, it's a hard switch here, so you almost can't really switch to Basculegion, you know, just yet. Your Rain is gone, so you're not doing so much damage in this sense. So you might just let it leave in and stay in there. Just try to get some damage and let Landorus clean up in the end game in that sense. So Aqua Jet here, a little bit of damage. You know, Shadow Ball, of course, a little bit more damage. Hex just removes it, of course, and then for some reason there's a U-turn rather than like a Stomping Tantrum. I have no idea what our opponent is doing. But Terra Fairy, Dazzling Gleam makes sense, and you know, you have the speed control on our Floodway because we are a speed nature one. Dazzling Gleam, Stomping Tantrum just picks this up. You know, so there's the D-Gleam. That's good damage. They went for Rock Slide, which is a mistake. That's not optimal. That could have missed. Because if we got crit, you know, that would have been just game over, right? So we were very fortunate there, but again, we advised our client that the Stomping Tantrum was the more optimal play in hindsight, right? But that's it. So, you know, let's just go back here into the Pokepaste over here. So you can pretty much see how the team functions. It's a very solid squad. You know, you can pick up a lot of good wins. Basculegion in the end game just does a lot of damage. Iron Hands is great as a lead, great as a backup. Fluttermane can do a lot of things, you know, with Trick Room and then just get some good solid damage overall. Scarf Landorus is very good. And, you know, Pelipper with wide guard support just does a great job against a lot of the spread moves. All right, so give this Rain team a go. Let me know how you do. And if, again, you're interested in either team building, you know, just getting a squad together, that's a tier 3 sub to the channel. We do it via a Discord call. And then we show you how to do EV spreads like this. Or if you're also interested, like this viewer, with the tier 4 sub, where not only do we get you to build the team, but, you know, we get to, you know, walk you through certain games and just give you overall feedback on certain matches like we did with all these games, and just help you become an overall better battler. So this way, you know, if you're trying to go to a regional, you can kind of work out some of your lines and see what you can do to just optimize your gameplay a little bit, right? So that's a tier 4 sub. So either way, you get the best bang for your buck, I promise. All right. But anyway, we'll be back with another video in the next one, guys. Peace out and have a good one.